Let's review again from Perek beis Mishnah Yud, the second Perek, 10th Mishnah. So, we mentioned previously, that the opinion of the Rabbanon is that in a beis you could plant, you could split it into a grid and plant.
Sorry, one more time. Where are we at?
Perek beis Mishnah Yud. As we mentioned, you could make a grid and plant every other section of the grid, as long as you have a beis rova in between. So the Mishnah says, Kol shehu b'seich beis rova, anything that's in that space, oila, it counts b'midas beis rova towards the empty space, including achilas hagefen, literally the area that a grapevine eats, but the area around the grapevine which is necessary in order to work it, vakever, or even if there's a grave there, vaselo, or just a big rock, that can't be planted, still all those things are island b'midas beis rova. They count towards the measurement of a beis rova, to that space between the two fields. Okay. Then the Mishnah clarifies. Tefua b'tefua is beis rova. This idea of needing a beis rova of space, that's when you're planting two types of grain. However, yerek b'yerek, if you're planting two types of vegetables, then six-tefachim, then since vegetables are generally planted on smaller scales, and they grow differently, so it doesn't look like a mixture, with just 6 tefachim of space, with a much smaller area. Tefua b'yerek v'yerek b'tefua. What if you have one area is grain and the other is vegetables, or vice versa? So the first Tana's opinion is beis rova, you need the larger space of a beis rova. And Rabbi Eliezer Omer, no, yerek b'tefua shisha tefachim. If you're planting vegetables next to grain, you can go with the smaller space of just 6 tefachim. Mishnah Yud Aleph. Tefua neital gabi tefua. If you planted it with the requisite space and you end up with grain growing such that the tops of two different species of grain are overlapping, or yerek or gabi yerek, or you planted two vegetables in a permitted manner and the leaves of the vegetables end up overlapping, or tefua gabi yerek, you end up with grain on top of vegetables, or yerek or gabi tefua, or vegetables on top of grain. Hakol mutter, it's all fine. Chutz midalas yavanis, except for this Greek squash that spreads very much, so it looks like it's been planted. In the other ones, there it's a problem. Rabbi Meir says, af hakishus upula mitzri. He says it's also true of this melon and these Egyptian beans, that these also spread, and it might look like it was planted in a forbidden manner when they end up from the way they end up growing. And Rabbi Meir says himself, V'roya nias divreihem, I see their words midvarai more than mine, meaning I find the opinion that it would only be this Greek squash to be more compelling, but this is what I heard. Okay. Perek Gimel. The first Mishnah says, Aruga shi shisha tefachim al shisha tefachim. If you have a row or a patch of garden, which is 6 tefachim by 6 tefachim square, so zerm b'teicha chamisha zranim. So the first Tana says you can plant 5 different types of seeds in it. How do you do that? You put arba b'arba ruchais, you put one on each of the 4 sides, v'achas be'emsa, and one in the middle, and the classic interpretation is that you put the one on the middle like a diamond. So it's right, because we said previously that if you have a reish tur, if you have a field that coming at an angle up against another field that doesn't look like a mixture, so if you put on the 4 sides and turned 45 degrees in the center, you could fit 5 in this little square. Haya loy gvul gevei tefach. If you have around this 6 by 6 tefach square a border which is 1 tefach wide and a tefach higher, so then zerim b'teicha shleish esrei. Then you now have an 8 by 8 tefach square, but it also has the benefit that it has a raised border around it. So then zerim b'teicha shleish esrei. You can now plant in this square 13 crops. How's that? Because you could fit now shleish al kol gvul ugvul. You could put 3 on each side, and which is 12. V'achas be'emson, you could plant 1 in the center, which will get you 13. However, The Mishnah says, Lo yita reish halefes b'seich hagvul. You can't plant a head of turnip on the border. Mipnei shehu memaleu, because the turnip will just grow and fill in the whole thing, and it won't be recognizable that it's up on a border. And Rabbi Yehuda says you could get away with planting shisha be'emtza. You can get away with planting 6 in the middle. Exactly how it's 6 or why it's only 6 is a lot of discussion on the Mishnah. The simplest explanation of how to do it is to say that you make diamonds that are 3 by 1.5 tefachim. The benefit of such a shape is that you get 1.5 tefachim of space between the sides that are parallel to each other, which apparently is the distance he requires between 2 types of vegetables. So it means not 6 tefachim, but just 1.5, and then you could fit in 6. More than that, even though you could technically arrange, presumably it's still a problem just because of appearances of being a mixture. Okay, we'll go over this Mishnah again tomorrow.
Is that where we'll start?